In this video, I'm going to talk about the art direction and content playbook for modern streetwear. I'm stoked to make this video because streetwear is at a crossroads. We moved from the supreme generation, palace world, the crossover of streetwear and luxury, to the Instagram and TikTok world and the rise of Instagram and TikTok brands and brands that dominate off of content. Content is better than ever. Designs are better than ever. And anyone that's trying to make quick money, which is an absolute joke to even say in clothing, or who isn't amazing with their designs and marketing and community is gonna get wiped out. Only the fittest, the best are gonna survive this next 18 months in the brand building world, because frankly, everyone can make something amazing. Like, this is a shirt from I think it's a candle brand that's just like their merch included that has as good of a wash and a feel as like 70% of streetwear brands. Like, the standard now is so high for success in such a competitive world that it's actually forcing brands to do really interesting stuff and really push the limits in a way that I quite enjoy. So I'm gonna cover 10 brands here, and we are gonna discuss their strategy and notes, and I'm gonna break down a playbook for brands covering everything you need to know and have on the radar for creative strategy for apparel. And just a quick heads up, I have a strategy toolkit. It's free. It is linked below in the description. It says content ideas for teasers, unveils, launches, like all in an organized database. This is what I use when I do creative strategy on apparel projects. You can grab that for free in the description. Let's lock in. First, we're going to talk about one of my favorite brands, a brand you've seen me wear extensively on YouTube and TikTok, dating back years now, preceding their takeover, and that is House of Errors. And I want to talk about House of Errors because they are a brand that truly embodies the power of art direction. This is a photography-driven brand. Now a combination of photography and videography, but especially in the beginning, the power of their visual images combined with the standout nature of the items gave us something that is unlike what anyone had ever really seen. And I like to use them as an example. When people were talking about photos or campaigns for their brands, I feel like this is the standard. Like, this shoot with these massive faces was pretty early on inside the brand's journey. The one that really brought them some significant exposure was this Black Friday market crash shoot. Launched on Black Friday. They are recreating some kind of famous scenes here. The photography is amazing. The casting is amazing. The way it shows the clothes is amazing. They play with perspective and scale in shoots like this. More abstract lookbooks and incredible scenarios. Recreating a famous Zidane scene here. Every single one of these shoots is incredible. And I look to any brand and I'm like, hey, if you really want to go into streetwear right now, are you hitting at this level? Is your creative for stills hitting at this level? Because that is the threshold. This was a new brand that came out of nowhere that is now regarded on a level of any kind of major streetwear brand. And when it comes to art direction, the concepts of the shoot, the execution of them, and what we see there, I feel like this is what you need to be looking for, where every single thing has a unique House of Errors feel. It has a concept to it. We see everything from the older models in here. And I'm not saying these are certainly thought through and they spent some money on them, but this isn't like this is completely crazy either. But this is the playbook for one of the most interesting brands. It also shows purely by the building of this universe, combined with the unique element of the clothing, you can stand out. But now I want to talk about a brand that I bring up a lot when people talk about creative concepts for content, especially when clothing brands look at content and they go, cool, I'm just going to shoot some more stuff on the concrete background or whatever it is. They are an example of a brand that has used virality to their advantage. You can go viral on social media making content for your streetwear brand, and they are an amazing example of it. So much so that they've been duplicated 100 times. I'm gonna leave with this video. This is the stop and frisk video that did so well it became a trend, where people basically, this guy gets arrested in front of a glass screen and it is a fit check for the actual brand products. Absolute destruction. Incredible video. Again, I'm not gonna speak to, I think a difference between a brand like this and a brand like House of Errors is the clothes are much better on the House of Errors, but the creative is excellent enough here. They've been able to break through and become part of the conversation by the quality of the videos. And you will notice that they would much rather have an amazing conceptual video that's executed than have a dozen quick little TikTok videos. At every reel that you have on here, from what we've just seen, again, another variation on the stop and frisk meme, to that explosion pan back and forth, they are relentless in the conceptual execution of everything that they do. And I think when any brand goes on a shoot now, when you're going into a video shoot, you need to be thinking, how are you executing on that level? If you're not coming with those ideas, like, don't do the shoot. But not every brand succeeds purely on creative. So one I want to call out is Elwood. Probably been inundated with Elwood ads, or know Elwood, or know the name Elwood. So Elwood's organic content doesn't do well. You can tell a lot of these just by the like ratio, right? Like some do good, some don't. But the majority of their best content is run as ads in Spark ads and Instagram ads. They create content for ads. And this is not a bad thing. This is a good technique that people can do. This is a technique that Cole Buxton represent. A lot of people have ran their organic stuff as ads, so most brands do, but they've just made a whole industry around it saying, hey, if we make a fit check walkthrough, we don't care how it works on organic. We are going to run that same concept as an ad and run 100 variations on it. And you can see this has 530 hearts, right? And hundreds of thousands of views because it works as an ad. And so they are saying, it doesn't matter, organic distribution doesn't matter. Spark ads, TikTok ads, Meta ads are cheap enough that if we make a lot of this creative in a way that we feel sells it, our best bet to get it in front of people is going to be doing it through advertising. And they do a wide variety of it, from these kind of compilation videos to the actual creative directors and people like that walking through the difference between their teas. They are just designing advertising to look like their organic videos and putting personalities on camera to show off the clothes. And I think for a company, especially a company like this, where if you buy into Elwood and it becomes your core tee or your core sweat, or you get one, they're banking on lifetime value, right? They're like, cool, we drop new colors, you're picking up more. They make a very stylable wardrobe that accentuates the existing clothes you have. This is a brand that is built less around statement pieces and more around everything else in your wardrobe. And if you're going to market something like that, they're doing a good job for it. And they've added vintage. That's an interesting thing around that too. They're basically doing curated thrifting on top of that. But again, they're focused on this elevated basics, for lack of a better term. But how to sell those isn't trying to go organic on the feed. Going viral with elevated basics is going to be a particularly hard thing, even just having a good organic presence. But making good content that sells via ads, they've nailed it. And so quick notes on that. I've run a lot of ads on apparel brands. As many of you know, I've worked for years and years now as a partner in the awesome Understated Leather. It's a women's brand. I have my own small valuables brands we're slowly building. I wish I could spend like 10x more time on, but frankly, content and business is more lucrative. But I have spent, even that brand, everything we do is based on like success and meta ads when it comes to online. You can get organic. Organic is just fuel for that. You have a great organic post. It's really that to me is just an ability for me to run great ads on multiple platforms. And I can't speak enough to the potential for brands to really look at their content holistically like that when they're doing those campaigns, and the total available market they have when you are doing multiple platforms, multiple content types, and you're doing organic plus paid. You can have nice little businesses that don't even appear to be big. And that is a secret to this, but it all comes back to amazing editorial and amazing content that's thought through and then executed. And I like to call out those brands because I feel like they're on the up and up. House of Arrows, I think, is just getting started. Cold Culture, I think, has cracked the code for a minute on how to get this viral attention. I'm curious to see what they do. Elwood, I think, is an underrated kind of money printer. They're probably doing a lot of sales. They're now on YouTube. They're obviously trying to do some interesting things. I know they worked on Paige Lorenz's brand, Dairy Boy, and a few other. They've got their hands and stuff. I think they have the right entrepreneur mentality to go much wider, even though they are disparaged heavily online pretty frequently. So I think they are like headed towards more interesting things as well. Obviously, the vintage launch, like they're making moves. But then there's brands that I feel like are kind of not making moves. And maybe like we've ended that time. So Aimee on Door is one of those where they did a really impressive thing where they basically built a luxury brand out of nothing. Just not an easy thing to do. High price points, high quality, high perception. And then some of these things like the recurring environments, recurring characters, the same models inside the things that they do. You see these recurring themes and motifs executed at a really high level, but they're still pretty simple when it all comes down to it. But it's perfectly curated, perfectly well done. I think it is very hard for a brand to come out and do this in our era currently at this same level. The quality of the clothing, the quality of the art direction, the content they did, the premium price point, and this look and feel. I feel like brands like this and About Blank, it's just kind of like a cheaper version in its own way where it's very image focused, it's very straightforward, let the garments speak for themselves, like speak to a more luxury environment. That period is kind of over. And a lot of it's over because of the nature of who the customer is for this, right? This is a product for guys, like junior people at Goldman Sachs, people that are in bank. It's like a negative status signaler when people like or have something like this. The more you see their customer base, like tech bros, you realize who the art direction of that kind of thing really speaks to. Now you can make plenty of money with that as a brand. There's always that difference within fashion culture of like what actually resonates and has a longevity of being able to be cool to people for a really, really long time. What makes the sales and the interaction of that I think is an interesting play. Now, About Blank is the same thing. Less so on the customer base conversation, but they make very simple content and simple art direction that really stood out because of its quality and simplicity when they launched. But if you tried to recreate that playbook now, like you would basically fail horribly. And you can watch them. They are just now starting to pivot a bit of their playbook to more outside shoots. They integrated a little bit of video. They took the longest time before starting to introduce those vignettes. And they didn't have to because the brand was in a certain place. But this look and feel, the very basic photo shoot, the very detail-oriented macros, the branding on everything, this works because they built off of it. And I think right now as you can see, because they're pivoting some of their content into new styles, is the end of that era. That is not a strategy that continues to work. I think we need to be really conscious of like the eras you're in from content consumption. There was an era where people really wanted elevated and clean, and that to come from independent brands. And for a moment, I want to talk about Satoshi Nakamoto for a moment. This is a brand, I was at ComplexCon, my booth was somewhere near theirs, and they had the, I forget what it's called, the Cage of Death or whatever it is, where it's like the motorcycle riders can ride around inside of it. They're a brand who has thinks about positioning extremely in depth. Their photography is good. Everything they do is like solid, but not life-changing. The designs are good, but this is a positioning brand. This brand succeeds because of the name. It's probably one of the smartest branding plays I've seen in this last decade. They saw this cultural thing with what's happening with Bitcoin. The name's Satoshi Nakamoto, Japanese brand. Then they said, hey, cool, this is positioning to a signaler to people that really know. We can bring credibility to it as a Japanese brand, and we can execute something at a luxury level, at a luxury cost and price point that speaks to this counterculture, to this, Mr. Robot, Bitcoin, streetwear lifestyle. And they've executed on that just absolutely excellently. But if their name was something else, it wouldn't be a fraction of the success of what that is. And it's a good thing to call out when you look at a brand has to kind of have everything. You have to have the quality and interest of the clothes, and clothes for a brand like this kind of have to be loud to get that name out there. You have to have the art direction. They're doing really interesting photos and stuff here. It's not really popping on social media, but it's a job of a brand like this is to be more of a signaler brand, where it may even be a detractor for them to make really big content on social media, because it's one of those like, if you know, you know, and the name nods to that as well. But those are like kind of like once in a decade, once in a 5-year opportunities to act on something like this. And so if you have an idea of that caliber, that level, or that social resonance, I cannot speak highly enough to trying to act on it, and they've done great work.
This week's video is brought to you by MusicBed. As always, I'm going to make these sponsors educational, and so today we're going to talk about sounds. MusicBed just added sounds into their platform, and I'm going to walk through a few that you should definitely know that can help elevate your short form content, your brand videos, or anything you make as a creative. So first, this is a riser. It is a great way to build tension at the start of a video. You will see a lot of creators that do this under their hook. And you can combine it with a hit for more impact, a reverse to accentuate a transition, and then tones or record scratches to accentuate a hook. I have a whole series on Instagram where I use that sensor as part of the hook to get attention. So MusicBed now has sounds, including all of these, live within their platform. There's over 150,000 plus curated sounds, and you can access them inside the same platform as the music, so you can get all of your audio needs for your videos and creative work inside one place. And there's also now a playlist of some of my favorite tracks. I made a theme for this. It's basically 15-second cinema tracks where you can use a little section of it to really quickly invoke a particular type of emotion, because that's how I like to use audio. You can check all this out and give MusicBed a try at the link in the description. Let's get back to it.
Then there's brands like 2J's and Nude Project and folks like this, these kind of more Euro-focused brands who are basically taking the Stussy playbook and applying it to social media. The 2J's feed is just a like younger Stussy feed with a really good job done of it, creating iconography in the same way Stussy does, doing better use than they do of objects, of collabs, of this like beach culture, making it significantly Euro, shooting all of this stuff on film, have done a great job with it. And it's a good example of like, if you want to be derivative, like let's do something better than the previous brand, be more appealing than the previous brand. Taking Stussy with plus Western iconography, plus more objects, more cars, younger, harder, more vibrant feel, I think they've done great work with. And one of the interesting parts about them is the adrenaline that comes within the content. This is not an underrated thing to think about, where it's like the video of the back of the boat. This is like a light version of this, but one of their biggest ones that popped off, I think it was like a big foundational moment for that brand, was when someone was actually hopping off of was doing like a cliff dive in the 2J shirt. Here we got the video here. I guess this was a big moment, probably one of their first blow up videos, 264,000 likes. But again, this is adrenaline focused content. That's a good angle for younger brands or brands that have that kind of mythos to be able to do. And again, we're seeing that dirt bikes is super, again, this is Stussy content, but they're running it in a better social fashion in a way Stussy probably would never do in kind of the modern era. And that is a recipe for saying, what was a successful thing? How do we take that style? How do we up how it performs on the algorithms? How do we up the intensity? How do we make it more thrill riding, more thrill seeking? Instead of a sunburn of a logo, tattoo of the logo, that kind of thing. But I want to talk about a totally different approach, because that's a new brand playing in an old playbook. Two of the brands I think are the most interesting in this world are Broken Planet and Dershoots. So Broken Planet I'm going to pull up on TikTok. I want to talk about their strategy here. I think it's one of the best ones. So they basically have a gang of young people. They move them out. They're new. Like the Blonde Girl's new as of the last few months. They will have like 4, 6 or so of these folks, and they basically take them on trips along with the founders and the staff, and they go places and they make skits. And you can scroll through here on TikTok. They are literally just karaokeing trending audio, being fashionable and mobbing around with friends, doing stupid young people stuff on camera in exotic places, whether that's Paris, as Morocco. You can kind of scroll back and you can see they'll have different clothes and different looks. They've got them all dirt biking in Morocco. They've got them all picnicking in Paris. And when you kind of think about it and you're like, how much content is coming out? Because there's a lot of content on the individual people's pages, on the brand owners' pages, on the core brand page. It goes in these waves. They're always going somewhere and doing something. Characters kind of move in and out. It's pretty easy content to do, all things considered. But where the cost is they're employing these creators. They're saying, hey, cool, we're going to let you travel to exotic places and we're going to pay you X a month and you're going to make X amount of skits with us. And then they're booking the travel and booking the trips and they're supplying the clothes, versus like traditional setup shoots where you're renting locations and getting more high budget videographers and photographers versus this is all iPhone. This is probably the same budget, but they get way more content. It's way more TikTok relevant and it's interesting and different in a way that I feel like has carved out a really specific niche. And I would say that like for a lot of brands, if you have access to young, good-looking people who will do this and you can build that like lifestyle and travel thing in there, I think this playbook is like it's like underdone at this point. There are brands that are doing it. I know YG is doing some of these things. Like there's other brands that are doing it, but I think there's a lot of interesting angles and places. I'd love to see the brands that are doing that in like different continents, different areas where I think that is just the beginning of that strategy and they are early. And no matter what, look, they're selling clothes to kids, right? The clothes are for children. And so it's a different market, but you have to understand what your market looks like. Dershoots is another one playing in this new world. They're doing skit-based content. You've probably seen it. So they have the founder, they have a couple recurring creators. She's in most of the videos, and they are making skits about fashion boys and fashion girls, the dynamic between the two, the dynamic of being like a person in the modern world who loves clothes, skits that are funny about the clothes around it, and that is the entirety of their content. And the genius of the strategy is the clothes get to be in every video, but you get to be entertaining enough to be shared, but they also have accounts by regions. There's a Dershoots London account, has different creators on there making London specific content in London. This is like the kind of the genius of it is if you get a good idea, you can then move it across your locations and that helps feed the London store because algorithms are localized. If you are in London, it will show you content of other people traveling in London, of what to do in London. If you live there, it will show you stuff around it. Algorithm is good at that. They're doing this for New York with the New York store now and kind of you can watch them kind of get it off the ground. And this is another one where I think the power of, okay, are we going to do these big budget shoots or are we going to we're going to employ a lot of creators and be pumping out content? I think this is just as effective now as that traditional AD playbook we're seeing from someone more like 2J's. There's plenty of brands I want to talk about, more high-end true fashion stuff who kind of cross the line like Martine Rose, where it's just pure, incredible art direction, what that looks like on a luxury level. Only so much time in this video. I'm gonna move into the playbook section here. So the playbook for success and what you're seeing every brand do, the first is spectacles with production. Like this is what you're competing against. Nike has giant chunks coming out of a building with cars with golf balls on top of them. People are spending money on pop-ups and productions. There's a spectacle element. A lot of the 2J stuff, they had their giant stars logos on big metal cutouts in the desert. People are creating these kind of moments you can make content around and get people involved with or people to go photograph. So I think it's important to call out because basically every brand is doing their version of that. There's an IRL experience version of it. And I would keep it on your radar as you scale. But the crucial core things is e-com style. How are you shooting your e-com photos? Like that is an opportunity. How your videos show up on your actual product pages. What are you doing for social creators? Who are you employing to be able to have that like actually on your feed, making content every day? How are you doing lookbooks and distributing them? Like someone like House of Errors is a lookbook with every one of those launches and then corresponding e-com photos that go with it. And then what is your distribution? You have organic platforms and then how are you promoting that on ads? And then how are you seeding or doing other things? And to elevate those, you need concepts for social, like we saw with Cold Culture. Whether that's you're actually doing the lip syncing stuff that Broken Planet is, or skits like Dershoots is, or elevating like adrenaline content the way 2J's is. Every one of those brands has concepts behind their shoots. If you're not doing concepts with this, I don't think you're breaking through into good art direction. And then environment. Where are you filming this? How are you creating this? What teams do you have? Broken Planet's moving that environment around. ALD had that kind of recurring environment of where they actually shot to begin to tell the brand story. And how are you bringing these experiences into real life? Because this is so competitive, having a pop-up and documenting it the way like House of Errors is taking over LA, where we just saw that Nike stuff. Like how are you then making content that applies in that region and then making interesting art direction that comes with it? This is a great video set for House of Errors to promote like a pop-up that's happening in LA. How are you bringing all that together? Like these things add up to the foundation of creative in streetwear. Because like I mentioned at the beginning, not only do the clothes have to be amazing now, or at least amazing for their target demo, the actual creative has to be on that next level. And then you actually really need to sell and fulfill and be like doing things that are interesting, because that's the standard for success. It is a hard niche to participate in.
A bit of a different ending to this video this week. I'm launching a new business. As many of you know, I've been doing creative strategy and creative direction, freelance for brands now while I create content for a while. In the newest business, I'm actually training teams inside of agencies and inside of brands to get better at organic social strategy and paid social strategy. I am rolling this out at the end of September. And in the meantime, I'm actually looking for people, 7 in particular. I have 3 set up already, to help me run a beta of this, to actually test out everything I have inside the curriculum before I roll it out to the agency partners. So if you are super junior or you have your own brand, this is not for you. But if you are working in marketing, any kind of creative space, and you want to learn how to be a creative strategist, to make organic strategy for brands or to run ads or to get better at it and learn my playbook, basically what I am offering is you will get a super discounted rate and we will connect one-to-one on that. So I can also learn and get feedback on if you think this is good and valuable. As always, if you don't like it, I will just refund it. And then in turn, I can make sure I am honed in before I get into this launch. So if that is you and that is something that is interested to you, I want to get 7 more people in this beta. I have a type form down below that you can fill out and I will shoot over all the info. And then y'all will see when that business launches and I will talk more about it here when I do launch it at the end of September. But in the meantime, I figured this would be the perfect audience who might actually be looking for this, that I can get some help evaluating this with. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I've got a fun lineup over the next few weeks. I'm gonna link some of my other popular art direction videos here. Look forward to seeing you next week.